The whole thing about art is you'd say, right, well, yeah, we'll challenge that definition.
Yeah,
let's pull it apart.
That's interesting. I think in many ways the actual term art is not a particularly useful term,
It's confusing.
Far too general.
As a category, yeah. I mean, ultimately, it only serves a purpose, subjectively. I think, well, okay, there are, dictionary definitions and stuff, but, it would be, a lot of people would want to argue with that definition, I think.
I'm sure it would.
Yeah.
The thing is, you have to term the art of doing something. So the art of cooking and the art of
Exactly.
because it's more about the skill, like you say, of doing a certain practice, and that's really what the term meant. It's about skill and craftsmanship. Because it doesn't mean that anymore. When you talk about art per se as a sort of noun, or
it's a much wider
an area of different nouns, but I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I think there's a high street food outlet where the staff call them the staff are labelled sandwich artists, which I think
really.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
I find that quite
Hello. I'm Lydia.
Andrew.
Tony.
I'm Hazel.
Hi.
It was touch and go.
Well, we've had our conversation now. You can talk.
You have to talk.
So what's everyone discussed so far?
We talked about non-art, or tried to. Ended up talking about art really, and what is art. That's how we define non-art. But we've covered a few areas. Talking about, is it something deliberate or accidental? Is it when there's a clear specified artist, or if it's been by a number of people who don't even know they're participating? Is it something that's separated from everyday life, so put into an exhibited space?
What if it's commissioned? What if it's sponsored and bought?
Somebody's just working for commercial purposes.
I think artists are the generators of relied on sponsorship and commission.
I think there is a point when something is just, I can't think of an example, but sometimes I get a feeling an artist has reached a certain level of prestigiousness and they know their work's going to sell, so they're just churning out the same ideas. Again and again, because they know it's going to sell. They know they're going to make money.
What's wrong with that?
Well,
put it this way, does that make it not art still? Because it's like the 10th one.
Yeah,
it's the same as the first one.
I don't know. I mean, I perhaps think that art has to be born from inspiration, or I don't know if there's a hierarchy between good art and bad art, but certainly I think an effective piece of art has to be born from inspiration. Not sure.
Does that mean like the first one is art and the 10th one perhaps is craft? And I'm just kind of playing with words here.
Craft, yeah. I mean, I've never really understood that distinction anyway between art and craft.
Are we talking strictly about visual arts?
No. Any old art.
I'm doing quite a lot of stuff with live art and performance art and stuff that involves live, presence of people. This could technically count, but is this art?
I think it is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If it moves people in some way, and they feel that they've had an experience, whether it's pleasurable or otherwise, I think that you could call that art.
So are we artists right now?
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, people call themselves performance artists, visual artists. I mean, the artist doesn't refer just to one medium of painting and sculpture and things like that. I mean, you could say that what we're doing now, what Jay's doing, this is a piece of artwork, just sitting here talking, because it's set up, it's staged, it's deliberate, the intention is to create a final film which can then be shared with other people and other people can learn from. This is the piece of art right here. It's set up, and then someone's going to watch it and appreciate it. That is your artwork.
So it's deliberate. has
Well,
to be deliberate. To be
no, I don't think it does have to be deliberate, but I do
This
think.
is where we disagree.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to necessarily be deliberate, but I think that it needs to be recognised. So people actually say, I'm supposed to look at this, watch this, appreciate this, notice this, as opposed to it just being around. So we were referring to this non-smoking sign. This is a functional non-smoking sign. If you were to take it out of its context, its functional context, and put it into an area where it's not supposed to be, for example, with a frame around it in an exhibition, then automatically that could be considered a piece of art because someone made it and someone's put it there for you to appreciate in whatever way you want to appreciate it. And it's a deliberate move.
It's non-art.
But at the moment,
I still think the non-smoking signs are.
I think this whole...
Since we've had this discussion about it, we've
I
started
appreciate it.
conceptualising and deconstructing
I
it.
think this whole toilet is a piece of art. It's gorgeous. It's architecture.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's to be like this.
I think if one man had spent a year putting this toilet together and laying every tile and then looked at it and went, wow, this looks great, he'd consider it a piece of art. If you put all of your effort and all of your time into making one thing, even if it's something functional, like, I don't know.
So if something is functional, if something is functional in its first and foremost state of being, like a tap or the toilet itself, could it still be art? I mean, it's non-art because it's something that is just purely for function, for use. It's not. It can be aesthetically pleasing, but that's really low down on its list of priorities.
I think I agree with the fact that if you took it out of here and put it somewhere where it's not supposed to be, then yes, it could be considered a piece of art. But if it was so exquisite and so beautiful, that like it was an elaborate toilet covered in beautiful, unnecessary brass finishing and enamel, then you'd have some home buyer or some architect go to that, and that's a work of art, that is, because it's just so exquisite. And you do see people say that about rooms, about furniture, about bathrooms and taps, and people spend thousands of pounds on taps because they want them to look a specific way, in a modern way, or a cool way.
But that's just aesthetics, though. Surely
that is aesthetics.
We're discussing also a very fine line between art and aesthetically pleasing stuff. So therefore, could all of that be counted as non-art?
But I think it's not necessary for that something to be removed from its original context to be appreciated as art. I think if somebody goes to that object and they decide to, think about it in a certain way and approach it as an object of art, then it automatically, qualifies as such.
Even when it's still in use?
Yeah, even more so perhaps, because, then it doesn't fall into this whole kind of slightly sterile gallery presentation environment. It's a lot more immediate in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think that things have to be removed from the context. I think if they are, that usually quantifies it as a piece of art. But if something is just recognised, then that in itself makes it a piece of art. You can walk around a beautiful stately home, at the end of the day its function is to be a home, and it might be expanded as you like. But if it's so monumentally beautiful, you would look at that as being a work of art from a number of different pieces in it, or just some enormous hall, a modern piece of architecture which is just an open space, but perhaps it's got a glass ceiling, and you walk in there and you go, wow, that's a recognition of it being something fantastic or inspiring, like you say, inspirational.
Well, that's an interesting thing. I mean, there's an old barn not far from where I live, one of these huge barns that's been turned into a concert hall, and you walk into that and you think, wow, what a fantastic place. But the people who built that, surely they never thought they were building a work of art. They just built a barn in the best way that they knew how to.
But look at the Empire. We both went in there and wow, that's beautiful.
But when whoever designed that knew they were building something beautiful, didn't they? It wasn't, I know they were building a theatre, but at the same time they wanted it to be a lovely looking theatre. Whereas the guys who built this barn, they just built a barn because they needed to keep the hay somewhere. But now we look at it and think, wow, this is wonderful.
But even the most basic...
Does that make it art?
But architecture is a skill still, isn't it? It takes time and dedication. Even a barn is not something any of us could just go and slop a barn together. It takes time and craftsmanship, and you need to know what you're doing. And if you're talking about something large, it takes a lot of effort and time. If someone can walk in there and go, wow, this is fantastic, this would make a great performance space, so you recognise it.
Yeah, but